Hello, Liberty boys and girls. Well, men and women, you guys aren't boys and girls. We are live today. Oh boy, do I have some story time for you today. Oh goodness. First, I'm gonna go through and say hello to the people here. I see that B. Griffin is here, Rose Blight is here. I see people mentioning Jesse Meeks, so he's in here somewhere. Let's see. There's someone called Cheesehead. Hello. Um, let's see. Mitch. That's not the right screen name for you, sir. Lever Guns 50, David Walker, Cult 45 with a little poop emoji saying to poop on communist Democrats. Nightmares Ride, Jay the Magic Robot. Let me turn the sound off of my phone here. Let's see. That was apparently a notification about someone being live right now. That isn't me. Tom Jefferson is here. JF Quest Lance Kilkenny is here. All kinds of people all up in the chat. B. Griffin, I think I mentioned you already. There's Q and there's Jesse. Hey guys. Stephen Lundgren. I got a super chat. A mustache shark. Sending live chat isn't allowing US flag emojis. Well, that is interesting. Well, so fun fact I learned recently that one of the things you do if you do channel memberships is you can have special emojis that can't be banned. So I don't know, maybe that's something. Oh, I see someone. Oh, yeah. Okay. So someone, yes, sorry. I got distracted because someone mentioned the Guardian piece in the chat. Pierre is here. So all kinds of people. Meathead, John Sparks, Iron Daisies. So, and Rodney Thor. Hi guys. I know there's way more of you than that in there, but we'll get going because I have to make sure today that I do leave. I have to cut it slightly short, 8:20 maybe, because I got to D&D late last week and they were calling me on the way like, hey, where are you? Because it's actually supposed to start at like 8:30 and I push it to 9. Anyways, so first and foremost, Robin isn't here to remind me, but I remembered today. So, partners, we have all the partners down in the description, but cool stuff is Cabela's is having their Cabin Fever sale up until January 22nd, where a bunch of goodies are up to 50% off plus free 2-day shipping for orders $50 or more, I believe it is. So to help the channel, you can use the link down in the description and do your regular Cabela's shopping. Just going to the store doesn't do anything for the channel, but it's still pretty cool because they support the channel. So that's great. Of course, you guys know about USCCA and their legal and financial protection, which seems to be getting even more important these days with everything happening in Virginia, which we will discuss shortly. Let me grab these super chats and then we are going to dive info show. I see that Sam Colt is here because I see his super chat up at the top, but I don't see it in the chat. Christoph Harper says Friday. It is Friday. Yes, indeed. I kept thinking yesterday was Friday, and I got all thrown off. And FL Sheepdog 1 says, Virginia, the eyes of the nation are upon you. They are indeed in more ways than one, we have learned. And there's Sam Colt, hello, saying hi. And Rob Allen says, "How's yous doing?" I'm doing good. I am a little fired up today. So, we're going to talk about the Guardian first. I don't think I'm going to do a dedicated. Lean Mean Meme Machine says F taxes. Hell yeah. All right. So, So yeah, I'm not going to do a dedicated video to this just because a few people have had the advice of not picking on someone bigger than me for something that's not as overtly bad as it could have been, I suppose. B. Griffin, thank you. He says like the blue top and the color coordination. So a few days ago, let's see, what day was that actually? So January 7th, I got an email from a reporter from The Guardian saying, "Hi, I cover gun politics for The Guardian, and I'm working on an article about rising tensions around gun control legislation in Virginia and why looking at policies that have passed in other states are prompting such intense pushback in Virginia." So to me, that says, like, hey, I realize that a lot of these tensions are because these laws have passed in other places and maybe haven't worked out so well. And then she says that she wants to do a phone interview and that I was recommended by the VCDL as someone who that has a good overview of the situation. So I thought that was pretty cool. Then she says, "I've been covering gun politics for many years now and work hard to be fair and accurate." Obviously, of course, red flag because it's The Guardian, but she's an American on the West Coast, and I did read a few of her pieces beforehand, and I mean, those other pieces, to be fair, were relatively fair and accurate. There was one that talked about how mass shootings are not the picture of gun violence, and so it's not fair to come after those because those are not the majority of crime in America. The article had talked about how there is no unity in how different outlets count those different events and statistics, and it gave the Mother Jones database as the best database, which I have also used and also feel it's the best database because it counts things the way they should be counted. It doesn't count accidental discharges, and it doesn't count it's something where it has to be 4 or more people. It doesn't count gang violence or things like that. So I think that that's fair. And then the article talked about how the big problem in America is gang violence in places like Chicago. And so we have to instead of focusing on gun policies, we need to focus on intervention policies in poverty and in the drug war and in populations of people that are impoverished and are more likely to engage in so-called gun violence. Absolutely. I agree with that. It also talked about investing more in mental health. Absolutely. I agree with that. So I was like, all right, this might be okay. Some of her other pieces, like I said, were pretty fair and balanced. So she wanted to do an interview for this piece that she was doing that was supposed to be coming out this week. So unfortunately, but in the end, fortunately, I could not fit her into my schedule. I was too busy. And so she said, all right, well, then let's talk on Monday. And I was like, that's fine. And then I was thinking, man, just in case, I should record this because you can't really trust some of these media outlets sometimes, quite frankly. You just can't. I mean, even something as I had a boss who, to be fair, was a horrible, horrible person. And she agreed to be on, I believe it was the Colbert Report at one point, and they tore her apart. And to be fair, she is a crazy person, but they tore her apart over free range parenting. And while she is crazy, they made her look way crazier than she is, and that's something that's when she was a psychologist, like that shouldn't really happen. But so it's proof that you can't trust a lot of these media outlets. So again, I planned on recording, but I live in a state where you have to have permission to do that. So I shot her another email and said, hey, Just so you know, I'm going to be recording the call so that I'm going to be recording the call for my patrons that have the behind the scenes tier so they can see some of the stuff going on behind the scenes. And she emailed me back saying no. And that, let's see, let me pull it up. Basically, she said that it was not constructive towards the sort of information that she needed. I don't do calls for an audience. It's a different kind of conversation, and one that's not useful when I'm trying to report on and learn about something. I just want to do a background phone interview, and that I've wrapped up the initial big picture piece about Virginia, but I'd like to hear what you have to say about Lobby Day. And originally she had contacted me about policy information. I'm like, well, it's kind of weird that I can't record a phone call when I'm supposed to just be giving background policy information. That's kind of strange. It put up a red flag. To be frank, I was going to record anyways, because really the law is just about things that are admissible in court. You can still record interviews and things like that one-on-one, because I was like, all right, worst case scenario, if she takes my words and twists them, I have evidence, and, I can put it up on social media. I can put it up, on one of my videos. So we had the plan to talk Monday. I was pretty excited about it because, hey, it's kind of a big deal. Well, the piece that I was initially supposed to be interviewed came out today, and I will share it with you guys. And thankfully, it doesn't mention me by name, which I suppose is nice because I put it in the chat here. So what's really interesting about this too is I had told her ahead of time, like, hey, I'm willing to talk to you, but I'm not going to give you my full name or anything like that because I've gotten death threats online, and I don't need my name in an article and to be Googled and found, frankly. So luckily I never gave her my name, and luckily she didn't call out my channel by name, but she did call out one of my videos. So here is the piece. And how do I put myself in the little corner here? Nope. Well, that's good enough, right? So here is the piece. Virginia Democrats won an election. Gun owners are talking Civil War. And the piece is largely about how white supremacy, white privilege, violent anti-government extremists, and conspiracy theories are fueling the protests of the fair gun laws in Virginia. Yeah. So, just as an aside, I always have to say in these things, just because I am critiquing this article and critiquing the writing in it, that doesn't mean go and attack this person. Please don't do that. Of course, she has her name listed on the article, so that's public information and all that. But, this is not a go and yell at this person thing, because to be fair, she did not call out my name. And so anyone who doesn't know my channel isn't going to recognize the, quotation or the video title as mine. So I will say that. So please don't go attacking this person. I don't need that, and I don't need the Guardian coming after me. But, this is just me showing that, I, in good faith, the thought that this person would be fair and accurate, and she very much mischaracterized this. So, I've highlighted some highlights here. Let me zoom this in for you guys here. Okay, bam. So she starts out, I'm sorry that I'm clapping into the mic. So she starts out saying that Democrats' pledge to pass new gun laws has sparked a grassroots pro-gun movement that will bring thousands of activists to a volatile rally this month. So we are already starting out calling this a volatile rally. And so it says that thousands of Virginia residents have shown up at meetings across the state to try and block Democrats from enacting new laws, with some gun rights supporters openly discussing violent resistance and civil war. And that part is true, but it's they're not just like, oh hey, cool, let's start a civil war for nothing. It's saying if this happens and people start trying to confiscate things, it will end up in civil war. I mean, there are some people calling for it, but that's not the large thing. And here we go. Here's pretty much the tagline and summary of this. The backlash to gun control in Virginia is being fueled by conspiracy theories and misinformation. And some observers worry that the escalating rhetoric may spark violence. And then she talks about how the Democrats won the election fair and square, and yes, they did. That is true. But as I will be noting in a video that I hoped to get out this morning and it didn't happen, maybe tomorrow, I've been talking to some people in Virginia, and really what happened is there was a lack of pro-gun candidates. A lot of these Democrats ran uncontested in several districts, and there were just not a lot of pro-gun candidates that threw their hats into the ring. So it's not so much that gun owners didn't go to the polls, it's they showed up to the polls and there was no one they could vote for, is what happened. So, I mean, I suppose it's no one's fault, and because of that, by default, Democrats won. But these are not standard gun control laws. Even if you look across the board. So she says, well, including universal background checks. You and I already know that universal background checks are already a thing. They already exist. And there are many states that do have laws, including Massachusetts, about person-to-person sales. Those still need to be done with a background check. You still need to log into the Massachusetts system, file paperwork. I think at this point, it even now still needs to be done at an FFL. So, whatever. Bans on military-style assault weapons. You and I know what's wrong with that. And while there are some states that have those laws in place, I would not call that a standard gun control law. Yes, it happened at the federal level for 10 years and was found to be largely ineffective. There are studies on that. I don't think that you can call something that's not on the federal level a standard gun control law, but that's me. Bans on high-capacity magazines. Okay, same thing for that. And she doesn't mention the fact that Virginia wants only one gun a month. She doesn't mention the fact that, as I talk about in the new video coming out, and we'll touch on more today, she doesn't talk about the fact that the state is attempting to shut down gun ranges. That bill is, I believe, particularly targeting the NRA range, but we'll get to that later. Doesn't talk about the fact that it's not even assault style military weapons or whatever you want to call them anymore. It's a new word, assault firearm, that has a much more broad definition and bans pretty much anything except for revolvers and lever action and bolt action rifles. Basically, it's saying that shotguns can't have more than 7 shells. I mean, that's insane, especially when you have people like Joe Biden, who doesn't know anything about anything. But even Joe Biden is like, hey, well, if you want to protect your house or your land, get a shotgun. But now they're saying, oh no, you can't have more than 7 shells in your shotgun. What? And there's so many. These are not what I would call standard gun control laws. Now, I know that someone who doesn't know much about guns wouldn't probably know what a standard law is or isn't, but isn't part of the job to do research. That's what I do for these things. Every week, I joke, if you haven't been on the stream before, every one of my videos is a very intensely researched 4 to 5 page long single-spaced research essay that I read to you guys. I mean, some of my videos, my history of assault rifles video, I researched that for months to get the information. I mean, on something quick like this, maybe you don't have months to research things, but if you're someone who works on policy, gun policy specifically, do some more research. Don't just spit out the typical buzzword talking points. Anyways, and she goes on to say, well, people shouldn't be surprised because Democrats won and they went on a gun control platform. Correct. They did run on a gun control platform. Gun control platform is not, well, we know what it means. It's not overtly a gun confiscation platform, which is what is happening now with the Senate Bill 16, pre-filed by Saslaw, and now the House Bill 561, 591. I don't remember what the numbers are, but the House assault weapons ban that was put in by, I believe, Helmer. We'll get to that. So, I mean, there's a very big difference between running on gun control and gun confiscation, because until recently, everyone has always said, well, we're not coming for your guns. TM, registered trademark, copyright, blah, blah, blah. Until Beto got brave and said, yes, we are coming for your guns. And then he was out. And I mean, now they are being very brazen and honest about coming for guns. I've had comments on my YouTube channel, people in the comments of how they're coming for my guns and how they hope that if I fight that I get shot and die. So very big difference. And then it talks about how the amount of people supporting the Second Amendment sanctuary has been unprecedented and has surprised both pro-gun and anti-gun activists in the size and scope. But, oh no, multiple Democratic lawmakers have reportedly received threats, including death threats. I had highlighted this earlier, so I don't know why it's gone now. The article that is linked here, interestingly enough, is this guy right here. That is not loading, so we'll go to this guy here because this is another article about it. Delegate threatened over bill that would allow state, local employees to strike. And really, if you read through the article, so this is about the bill that prohibits law enforcement from striking. It is posed. And I mean, I can give him this. The background says that it was introduced to allow teachers to strike so they could get higher salaries. Fine. But it also says in the article that nothing changes for law enforcement. But if that's the case, then how come in the bill it now changes the definition of law enforcement and adds people to that? Because if you go and look at the actual bill, it'll show you what the law has been, and it has the new proposed amendments in italics. The italics are all the part about law enforcement and how they're not allowed to strike. And how they will be fired if they strike and then unemployable in the state, city, county, town level, what have you, for a year. So if this bill is supposed to be about teachers, why is it expressly talking about law enforcement? I think that's a valid question. Anyway, so these death threats that are cited in the article, if you scroll through, death threats are bad. Don't do them. I have received them. But the death threats come down to, where is it? Let's see. It was, here we go. One death threat made on Twitter. And that's what this was about. He got one death threat on Twitter that he reported to the police. Okay, so people have gotten death threats. They've gotten a death threat on Twitter. And then here's when we get to the fun stuff. How all of this going on in Virginia has attracted the attention of national anti-government militias and white supremacist groups, hoping to use it as a potential flashpoint, according to an analyst at the Anti-Defamation League. Ironically enough, yesterday, I was looking for some pictures of some luau shirts for a Boogaloo meme for my video, and I stumbled upon the ADL's article about the Boogaloo and everything happening in Virginia, and they were so ridiculous. And they just talked about basically the ADL says that all of this is the KKK's fault, and that the KKK is lying to people and telling people that the government is coming for our guns, and that that's what's starting this whole thing. And that and it's ridiculous. It's really ridiculous. There's a little bit more about this later on in the article. And it says again, Lobby Day. I'm like gesturing to this like as if you can see it, but so I guess I'll put my mouse on it. That Lobby Day at the state capitol is expected to attract thousands of people, again, including anti-government groups. Which, some interesting point that just came to me now. I don't think these people realize that Antifa are anti-government groups, but everyone loves Antifa, right? In a lot of these articles, and a lot of these media people don't have boo to say about Antifa. Antifa is anti-government. And then, for the first time, there are several of these references in this article, but they worry that it will be a repeat of the 2017 Unite the Right rally in nearby Charlottesville, Virginia. I mean, and there is potential for that to happen, but it's not the fault of the VCDLs. It's not the fault of the law-abiding gun owners. Well, law-abiding until these things go through. The law-abiding gun. It's not their fault. You can't help if there are people that attach themselves to movements, but the people that would be doing that are very far in between. We're probably talking about one in several tens of thousands of people. I've seen estimates of anywhere from expecting 10,000 people to 100,000 people. I read an article somewhere earlier this week that Phil Van Cleve, the president of the VCDL, normally charters like 6 buses to shuttle people to the rally, and right now he's up to like 23 and counting or something like that. And that there's other groups getting buses and things like that. So, I mean, it's going to be a pretty big crowd. And of course, note, Ralph Northam says that he plans to pass new gun violence prevention laws no matter the public backlash. So that's good to know. And then this particular point, everyone needs to turn the rhetoric down. Rhetoric like, for example, this thread that someone tagged me in earlier this week. Virginians votes for gun control overwhelmingly in November, and terrible grammar, apparently, deal with it or suffer the consequences of confiscation. And then someone says there'll be no confiscation or registration, there'll be no compliance with any such legislation, and then they say, then enjoy prison. There was another one that I posted earlier this month, a comment on one of my videos that was like, oh, I hope the entire government and National Guard goes in there and takes all these right-wingers out. Okay. All these people that comment and send me horrible comments all the time about hoping that I get shot and killed with my own guns, or that the government wipes me out, or, that I get swatted or something like that. But, everyone needs to turn the rhetoric down. Or how about the sign that Senator Marsden, put up in the Capitol today? Moms Demand Action posted it. Actually, oh, that's right. I can't pull it up because I can't see messages on Instagram desktop. But I'll put it in a later video. He put up a sign that was like, "Hey guys, it's great that what? I'll pull it up. I'll pull it up in my messages. It'll be easier that way." Sorry that we're getting a little off track here. I just, what does the sign say here? So this was posted by VCDL official on their Instagram page. It is a sign that was put up by Senator Dave Marsden and praised by Moms Demand Action. It says, "Welcome, Gun Lobby Day members. I know you mean well, but if it isn't too much trouble, please stop trying to save our lives. Too many people are getting killed in the effort. Signed, Senator Dave Marsden." but it's our side that needs to turn down the rhetoric. Okay. Moving on. So then it talks about the beginning of the movement and purposely, puts in that VCDL is politically to the right of the NRA, which I agree with because the NRA doesn't do crap anymore and has been giving away our rights for decades. And talks about how the NRA has purposely been making an effort to separate itself from the Virginia movement. So basically, it's like, oh, well, not even the NRA is going to touch this because it's so extreme. Going on to say, none of the Virginia Democrats' proposed gun laws have been found to be unconstitutional by the U.S. Supreme Court. Well, that's not true. And the U.S. Supreme Court, the SCOTUS hasn't heard a gun case in how long now, really? But how about Heller? That proved that some of these laws are unconstitutional. In fact, the assault weapons ban is a clear violation of Heller. I've mentioned this before because Heller says that you cannot ban firearms that are already in common use. And AR-15s are in common use. That was also reiterated in 1994 Staples. So unconstitutional. And you can't in California, when they did the magazine ban, you cannot ban something and threaten to take it away from people when it was previously bought legally and not offer compensation. So, I mean, there we go. Another court decision that said that these were unconstitutional, and has found federally or has been upheld repeatedly by federal courts as consistent with the Second Amendment. But this is according to someone from UCLA. And I don't know Adam Winkler. I don't know anything about him. But I don't think he's correct because I just rattled off 3 instances in which these were proved unconstitutional. And I'm not even a lawyer or law professor. I am just someone with the internet. And I know that there's the whole thing about like, oh, keyboard warriors and keyboard scholars, but it's Googleable. Oh, and I see Q in there saying, don't forget thumbs up. It helps out the channel. That is true because you know what? Every time I talk about Virginia, at least for the first few days, the video, I have this app that shows up on the side and tells me how many times my video was suggested and things like that. And it says 0 every time. It used to be that I would post a video and it would say like, oh, 5 or 6 of the suggested videos are from this creator, blah, blah, blah. I get 0 now. I get big fat red zeros every time I talk about Virginia or anything edgy at this point. So please like the video, thumbs up for the channel. And then it talks some more about tensions flare because these sanctuary resolutions are largely symbolic. That is just echoing what the AG said and how they have no legal effect and that local governments can't nullify state laws. We talked about that in the last video and Dillon's rule and all of that. But I thought this was nice. Resolutions have prompted pledges from some in law enforcement that they will refuse to enforce state gun laws as they see as unconstitutional. And I mean, there is that quote about how people have a responsibility to not follow unconstitutional laws. So I'm glad that at least in words, there are law enforcement stepping up. Talks about the Culpeper County Sheriff who has sworn to deputize people. Talks about Tazewell and their militia. And like, oh, you know, the audience, when Roanoke refused to approve a sanctuary resolution, the audience shouted the council was treasonous. Those wild and crazy, chaotic gun owners, huh? And how when Donald McEachin threatened to bring in the National Guard, it just gave additional fuel to conspiracy theories about gun confiscation. But, I mean, the thing is all of this, you know, saying that it's only the gun owners that are talking about this. Well, I believe it was the second video, which is mentioned later in this article. The only reason the Boogaloo came up in that video is because Delegate Jay Jones wrote an article to the AG, and he is a Democrat, requesting an official formal opinion because he was worried about a civil war coming. And he said that the tensions are much like those leading up to the Civil War. So it's not just the gun owners that are talking about this. And frankly, he said it first. And this part is true, talking about how there were some misinformation about conspiracy theories that the state's Democratic governor was going to shut off electricity, or that the UN is coming to take Virginians' guns. I do have a video about the UN job postings that I created like 2 weeks ago now, and it's been sitting on my desktop, and I haven't been able to edit it, but it is coming. But I mean, she is right about the whole conspiracy theory about shutting off electricity. I suppose it's totally possible, but as I spoke about in one of my videos, that was all of that whole thing, all of those rumors stemmed from a singular article by one Hal Turner, who is known to post some inflammatory things and was apparently at one point an FBI informant for white supremacy groups. It all came from him, and there's nothing legitimate to back it up. So that's that. So then, claims of a second civil war. Gun rights commentators on YouTube are asking, does the Boogaloo begin in Virginia? That's my video. That's me. So again, she doesn't call me out by name here, but that is the title of my video. And if you are on my channel, you know that that's my video. And I mean, could she be talking about someone else? It's possible, but most people would probably say like, oh, is the Boogaloo going to start in Virginia? I purposely used those words because I like alliteration because I'm a nerd. And that is one of the videos that was recommended by the VCDL. And supposedly in this, I and other YouTubers warn folks, this is now or never, and tyranny is not something in the past. Well, it's not. And this is considered violent and anti-government rhetoric. Now, as a libertarian, it is true. I don't think the government is good for anything except violence. But, you know, I am not going out there. I am not telling people to pull out their pitchforks or their guns and go after the government or anything. In fact, I've gotten a lot of flack recently for not doing that. But you know what? I am not going to directly call for that because, quite frankly, we don't want to start the fight. You know, you never start a fight. You finish the fight, but you never start the fight. And also, you know, even if I were to do that, that's a crime. And I've said before, that is how you get the feds knocking on your door and you get dragged out with a black bag over your head and you get shut down. So I am not sitting here calling for anti-government violence. So I kind of resent being characterized in this way. And you guys know, and you know, the people, it's funny because the people that aren't mad at me for not calling for these things say that I am one of the more measured commentators and that I try to have a calm and clear head. And in fact, I do, because, you know, if I were to, you know, Alex Jones it up, then it's a lot easier to get dismissed. And it has always been my goal with the Liberty Doll brand to be as professional as possible. That is my goal. I know that right now with my really bad Alex Jones impression, it's probably not coming off that way, but I'm a little riled up tonight. And this is a very different, you know, person-to-person platform with you guys on the live stream, which is why some people don't like it. But anyways, so and then it goes on about those crazy gun owners and their violent rhetoric and their anti-government sentiments and their violence and blah, blah, blah. So I'm under the claims of a second civil war headline or heading here. And I will say, you know, there is a little bit in here about Phil Van Cleve. And I mean, his quotes are genuine and good. They are the quotations from Phil are balanced and fair. I will say that. He made a point of saying this is not people who are saying, yeah, I'm going to go fight. These are people who are concerned that this is where we're headed. They're seeing something, and they know if the government pushes the wrong buttons, it's going to happen. They are very much aware that this is a powder keg. And I mean, that is valid because a lot of times people don't think of all the other fallout that comes with war. All the collateral damage and innocent people that get caught in the crossfire. I mean, that's what war is. And then he says that the Virginia Democrats are kneeling in water and they're about to grab the third rail on a train track, and I just don't know if they realize that. I think that's a really good metaphor. It was very clear and concise. He says if they pass gun control, I don't know where it's going, but I'm just praying they don't do it, leave it alone, walk away. I think ultimately that's what a lot of people are hoping for here. And then the article goes on some more and talks about how white supremacists are recruiting. And again, like, oh no, there was a local government meeting where Charlottesville is located. Well, and that gun rights supporters there were overwhelmingly white. Well, I mean, I'm sorry that there was a government meeting in the county that happens to hold Charlottesville. That in and of itself is not evidence of white supremacy in this movement. And the gun supporters were overwhelmingly white. Like, okay, I don't really know what that's supposed to say. It doesn't say that they were only white, just overwhelmingly white. Like, okay. And that was something that she was informed by an anti-racist activist who supports gun control and that thinks the sanctuary movement is rooted in white resentment. So ultimately, he says that as white people, taking away privilege can feel like an attack when it's just a leveling of the playing field. Okay. Now, so, I mean, she's just quoting someone that she interviewed, but I don't understand why, the Bill of Rights is suddenly being characterized as a white supremacist movement. Rights are not a privilege. Driving a car is a privilege. Protecting yourself and your family and your home is not a privilege. When we had like the LA riots with the roof Koreans, was that considered privilege to be able to defend your business? No, that is a God-given right, Bill of Rights and Constitution or not. Government can't take that away. They could try, but they can't take that away because that is an inalienable right that every human being has. But again, it's the white supremacist and anti-government groups that are gravitating towards the standoff over gun rights in Virginia because it's an opportunity for radicalization and recruitment. Supposedly, says a domestic terrorism expert from the Department of Homeland Security. So, I mean, the only fair and balanced thing in this really is the quotes by Philip Van Cleve. I mean, everything else is about how this movement is a conspiracy theory fueled by white supremacy and anti-government rhetoric. And I mean, maybe that is what it looks like to some of these outsiders. But I mean, again, if you are supposed to be an investigative journalist, look a little harder on both sides. I see one side overwhelmingly overrepresented here, and the other, we just have this one guy saying, "Oh, well, no, like it's not our guys. It's not the law-abiding citizens." This whole article just basically shits on the movement, and luckily I was not involved in it beyond that little shout out to my video. It characterizes the Oath Keepers as the country's largest anti-government group and as a group that's being watched by the Southern Poverty Law Center. mentions the Oath Keeper and then talks some more about white supremacist accelerationists seizing the standoff as the potential beginning of a civil war that will destroy the United States and allow them to build a white nation in its ruins, according to the ADL. And I'm sure that there are these people out there. There are a couple who have commented here and there on my videos, but that is not the movement as a whole. It's just not. That's, maybe a handful of people out of how many hundreds of thousands at this point. And so that now the Southern Poverty Law Center and all of these people are monitoring the spread of conversations about Virginia and Boogaloo among extremist groups. So if you talk about the Boogaloo, and if you talk about, just talking about this now means that you are an extremist being monitored by some of these organizations. I mean, it does say that, it's not only on militia pages, and it's now spilled over to other Second Amendment pages and in the comments section. But I mean, if you're talking about this, they're watching you, which I suppose we knew. And I mean, maybe that sounds like a conspiracy theory, but really, when in this day and age with all the NSA things, and I mean, there was the video I did a few months ago about the guy who was visited by the police and raided because of a meme that he posted. So, I mean, you can't call it a conspiracy theory if there's actual evidence of this stuff in the news, right? And again, Charlottesville, VCDL Lobby Day is going to be Charlottesville, they're saying. But the thing about Charlottesville is, some of the arguments have been that there wasn't enough police presence or the police didn't do their job. And in this situation, Philip Van Cleve, I will say, he has told people, please don't bring long guns. It detracts from the message. And he said, we are relying on the police, the state police and Capitol Police for our protection. Militia groups don't need to come for protection. And it says right here that they're relying on law enforcement here to keep this thing safe. And so he's saying, if something happens, it is not our fault. So you know whose fault it is? It is the NRA. So the same guy that says none of these laws are unconstitutional and none of these laws have ever been found to breach the Second Amendment in court says the responsibility for any violence in this ultimately comes back to the NRA. The shitty NRA. Because for decades, the NRA has been pushing overheated rhetoric about the Second Amendment protecting your right to rise up against the government. That's literally what the Second Amendment says. And because of that, this is the natural result. So, again, I am happy to say that my name was not put in this article and that it was just a video title. But, I resent myself and my videos and the entire movement being characterized in this way because it's just not true. I suppose we should have expected that from The Guardian, but there we go. So in light of that, I did respond to her and, I was kind and courteous and I just said, unfortunately, this isn't something that I'm interested in anymore. Enjoy your weekend. And she knew what it was about because she wrote back a couple hours later saying if there's any criticism about the background of the piece today, she would like to hear it because she's gotten some criticism on it from other people and she wants to make sure the next ones are better. I don't think I'm going to respond to that because, I don't think to really overrepresent one side and represent a side that is incorrect and has already falsified the actual meaning of the movement. I mean, it's clear that her mind is made up. It's clear that the piece was very biased. I'm not going to be changing her mind. And frankly, ain't nobody got time for that. I am a busy lady. So that is what happened with Guardian and all of that. I know I saw that while I was talking about all of this, A lot of super chats came in, so let me get to all of those and drink my water. I have noticed a trend that when I get fired up, I just go and don't even look at what people are saying. So I have to make sure that I scroll way back here. Plus, the stickers don't show up on StreamYard. So Jesse Meek said that the connection was being wonky. So hopefully you guys got all that. I know that on my end, I did see the super chat freeze where for a while it said the last one was at 7:30 and now it's at 7:50. Hopefully I'm still on the air. Who knows? We got some stickers here from Kelsey Raposa. I'm always excited to see some of these stickers. Toonie Sin. Trashman says, sorry, I'm late. Stupid Comcast crashed right before the live stream. It's me. You know, no big deal. They don't want you to see me. Not true. You know, Comcast just sucks. Dude, seriously. Oh, that's cute. It's like a little coffee cup. Jesse Meek says, no matter how large a group in a conversation is, if at least one person present is recording it or it's in a public place, the recording is admissible. The problem is if an outside person records. Oh, interesting. That might be different in Massachusetts. But, that's good to know. Sergeant Rock 52 says, Happy New Year. Rob Allen says, I like the guy that took unworking guns to a buyback and then took that money to buy a new gun. LOL. So I posted a meme today on Twitter that's probably not going to help my case. You guys should go look at it. It's about a gun buyback and a dog that overhears the conversation. I saw it and I just laughed so hard and I had to repost it. I reposted it on my personal page too, so I'm probably going to lose some friends today, but whatever. Farman 420 says, when criminals and government start following laws, I will as well. I think that's fair. Jesse Meek says you have nearly 1,000 watching and half have already liked it, so F YouTube. Thanks, guys. Yeah, F YouTube, even though they are my primary platform because they have the biggest audience, but still, F that. Bob Blitheract says, Virginians, defend yourselves without guns. Pierre says, perhaps we should sick Colion Noir on her, and I hope I'm saying his name right. I don't want anyone to be sicked on anyone because, I will say she did not put my name in it, which is good because, I doubt anyone is going to Google the video title. But again, I know what it is. You guys know what it is. I don't know how anyone could think, oh, I'm going to quote this person's video title in here and they're not going to notice it. And then be okay with being interviewed? No. I talked to some after this. Actually, I posted about it on my personal page, and some of the bigger voices in the movement, in the liberty movement, whatever, reached out to me about it, and they said that I made the right call of then deciding the interview wasn't going to happen. So I feel good about that. Trashman says, my cousin went to IU and came back with the same rights are really privileges mentality. Oh, sorry. My cousin went to IU and came back with the same rights are really privileges mentality. This writer probably has taught the living, breathing Constitution, as was my cousin. That is true. That is something that is largely taught in colleges. Colleges are overwhelmingly liberal leaning. I don't know how many classes I took that told me that I should be guilty, that I should feel guilty and have self-loathing for my skin color, which is weird because just 4 years before that, in high school, I was being taught about melting pot and how these activists wanted us to be colorblind, and now being colorblind is wrong. I don't know. Bob Blitherac says the state of Virginia is an extreme threat. Certainly things down there are getting cray-cray. Let's see. You do have one dislike from Governor Blackface, says Malted Rider. Who knows? Maybe it's the journalist. Maybe she's watching this right now. Michael Bloomberg is back today and says, I paid you good money not to discuss this topic. Shut the stream down. Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Blueberg, but I believe your check has been lost in the mail. Keith Have One says you keep being you, and Rose Blight says the bills are against both Virginian Constitution and the U.S. Constitution on gun rights and ex post facto laws. Oh, that's right. I mean, the biggest one that's unconstitutional is blocking militias. Militias, and there is that argument that the leftists have the argument that the Second Amendment is for well-regulated militias, and we don't have militias. Is their argument. Well, okay, so then the argument is for Second Amendment is for militias. So now you're trying to ban the militias, but there's permission for militias in the Second Amendment. So clearly that's unconstitutional. You can't violate people's right to gather and assemble. Okay, let me grab another ones. Nick Anand says, thanks for showing her article. She won't get our clicks. Well, thank you to you guys and your super chats that allowed me to get a second monitor so I could do that. Keith Have I got. These are out of order. Rose Blight. My one dislike. Okay, so, all right, we'll get to Virginia now. So I have signed up for the VCDL alerts, and I've been getting a lot of emails from them. So let's open this back up. And unfortunately, as of today, the Virginia Democrats passed the gun ban in the Capitol. It is not for the Capitol Square itself right now, but it is for the building. So even if you have a concealed carry permit, they call it a CHP in Virginia, apparently. Even if you have a permit, you are now not allowed to carry in any of the buildings in the any of the General Assembly or Capitol buildings in Richmond. And there's also no exception for lawmakers, which is interesting. Because in the past, a similar bill was filed and was always shot down, no pun intended, by Republican lawmakers, because many Republican lawmakers do carry in the Capitol. So again, there's no ban outside those buildings, including the grounds, but it is the General Assembly, it's the Pocahontas building, and I don't remember the names of the other buildings, but basically all the buildings now you cannot carry guns in. Also, late this afternoon, the General Assembly announced that they were immediately sending a bunch of these bills to the Senate Judiciary Committee for 8 a.m. Monday. Now, whenever a governing body does something like that and immediately puts something up to committee or up to a vote, especially at 8 a.m., they are doing so in hopes that the people it will affect won't show up. So this is, again, what they're doing. They have scheduled this for 8 a.m. Monday, hoping that no one will show up. So if you live in Virginia and you're available, show up to these Senate Judiciary hearings. They also have a link in here where you can send an email. They have this really great campaign going on now, I think, where you can, one of the emails they sent out, you can go in, you can click the link, and it has a rotation of different emails, and you go through and you click, and it's, that was a burp, sir. You can go in, and it based on your address, it automatically figures out who your legislators are, and you click the button and it pops them off an email. So right now they're telling people to log into this daily and send daily messages, and right now the goal is to completely flood their email and phone systems with this stuff. Of course, the Virginia Democrats keep saying that these bans are what the people want. But clearly, if there's this much blowback from it, then it's not what the people want. So also there was a bill pre-filed that would ban all public ranges that are not on state property, provided that they have 50 employees or more. But the key words here are there are 50 employees or more in the building. So say that you have a gun range in let's see. So for example, there used to be a gun range around here, that there was a range, and then there was also like a little sporting shop and like flea markety thing, so something like that. There was also a place I went to in South Carolina, for example, that was a range where you could rent machine guns and things like that, and it was sort of in like a strip mall. So any range that's in a building like that, where there could be more than 50 people employed between all of the businesses in that building, that range needs to be shut down unless 90% of the patrons of the gun range are law enforcement. So, like I said, I have a video coming out about this, hopefully tomorrow, next day latest, but I'm really gunning for tomorrow. This won't affect little mom and pop ranges or like, pistol and rod clubs or anything like that, but what it really, really will affect 100% is the NRA range, which is probably what this is being targeted at, because the NRA range just happens to be at the NRA headquarters and the NRA museum, which I'm pretty sure has more than 50 employees on their payroll. So that would be shut down. If they don't shut down, it is a fine of up to $100,000 plus an additional $5,000 per day. That is a lot of money. And the NRA is already bleeding dollars from 50 different wounds at this point. And I mean, clearly, if the NRA is distancing itself from Virginia and the Virginia conflict and tensions, we'll call it, then, I mean, the NRA really isn't that much of a gun rights organization. I have a whole video about that if you want to check it out, with all the problems in the NRA. But what's interesting is the little rinky-dink ones that are left open have to register. They have to keep a log of everyone who comes in to use the range, and they have to have their photo IDs and everything, and then they need to send those registries to the state police. So that is the bill that was pre-filed on either Monday or Tuesday. So, they want you to register your guns, and they want you to register yourself at the range, apparently. The House version of the assault weapons ban has a permitting requirement, also with registration. So they want you to, register your guns. They want you to register your permits. They want you to register yourself at the gun range. Those permits, incidentally, if you do not own your home or are visiting someone else, it requires the landowner's permission for you to have a gun, and you need to keep that written permission on your person at all times. Is part of the new House assault weapons ban bill in Virginia. So, I mean, they're just at this point, they've got like a hat, right, with a bunch of slips of paper in it that they've just written random shit on, and they're just pulling out those pieces of paper and stringing them together into a bill. It's basically what they're doing at this point. I mean, it's just, oh my goodness, it's so ridiculous. These things that are going on. It's just, I can't believe what they're coming up with, quite frankly. And then also in the video that will be coming out, these lawmakers are making their true feelings about gun owners known. There was a hearing, a county town hall meeting, I believe, in Fairfax County over the weekend, January 4th, and it was live streamed. And some of the lawmakers got caught on a hot mic accusing gun owners of being children, suggesting that they are tantruming children. And if we ask any questions, politicians will just not respond and we will eventually go away. Then there was an email that went out calling gun owners mentally ill by the same guy who has the nice little sign that I mentioned earlier that was posted on the VCDL Instagram. So that's a fun time. Like I said, that will be picked apart a little bit in the video that's coming out, so make sure to check that out when it comes out. There's also, they put in a bill to ban all non-lead ammo, which is interesting. You can't even possess it. There's a bill to make it, another bill to make it a felony to have a so-called high-capacity magazine, which is actually a standard capacity magazine. All kinds of stuff happening down in Virginia. If you live in Virginia, your name is Toby now? Okay. I'm sorry. I always yell into my mic for some reason. Oh, Fud Mutton is here. I always yell into my mic for some reason, and then I'm hoarse by the end of the time. Drew McTeague says, what's your favorite dinosaur? This isn't something that I've thought about in a long time, but I do love dinosaurs. I'm a dinosaur nerd. Rose Blight says, Virginia 24.2 through 233, removal of elected and certain appointed officers by courts. Upon petition, a circuit court may remove from office any elected officer. Okay, that's interesting. That's good to know, because one of the criticisms I've seen was like, oh, well, you can't get rid of an elected official in that law. But I mean, clearly it looks like there is a provision for that. So, damn, someone in here does not like Fairfax. And something about deleted comments. Well, I can't do that, so that ain't me. Oh, I see that 22 Cheapster is in here somewhere. Anyways, and Andy Robichaud. Hello, friend. Okay. So let's see. We have about 10 minutes left, so we are not going to get to Australia, but I want to share this little tidbit because I thought it was funny. This isn't anything like super crazy, but I was amused by it. Ilhan Omar has PTSD from hearing the Trump administration talk about the Middle East. That's not quite how PTSD works. So I was amused by this article. So she apparently gave a press conference earlier this week and talked about how the conflict with Iran and the Trump administration is making her feel ill and triggering her PTSD. She says, I feel ill a little bit because of everything that is taking place, and I think every time I hear of conversations around war, I find myself being stricken with PTSD. So apparently she has said at one point that she has PTSD. I'm going to pause this. And that it was because of stuff that happened in Somalia. Someone is complaining that I'm not for the First Amendment. So to be fair, like you can see my hands, I can't even monitor the chat. So I'm not deleting anything. That's not me. YouTube sometimes does that. And, you know, if you say things that could, YouTube does that. What is it? They have one of those rules that if you say certain things, it like flags comments and things like that. And there are moderators in here to make sure that I don't get pulled off of the air. I am not personally deleting comments. I never delete comments unless they are death threats or things like that. That's the only thing that I ever delete. Or if, you know, any threats, death threats, rape threats, whatever. Anyways, so she says that she has PTSD from Somalia somewhere in here. But so the whole thing is like, Nothing against people with PTSD. I'm a mental health therapist. Like, you do you. You have to do whatever you have to do to survive and exist in the world. But, like, if you are someone who cannot hear the word war or talk about the Middle East without your PTSD being triggered, supposedly, you should probably not be in Congress, because those are topics that come up frequently in the political sphere. I mean, Middle East has been a hot topic for how long now? God, since before September 11th. Since, geez, like what, the 80s at least? Middle East has been a hot topic in politics. War, I mean, God, how many wars have we been in? And I'm not talking just about like official declared wars like World War One, World War Two. I mean, there were the Gulf Wars, there was Vietnam, war in Afghanistan, the Libya war that Barack Obama started, all of these things. So if you cannot hear the word war or talk about the Middle East because it triggers your PTSD, I'm sorry, but that is preventing you from doing your job as a congressperson. And if that is the case, then maybe you shouldn't have run for Congress. I'm sorry, we cannot have these kind of disability accommodations for our elected political officials. That's just not, I mean, that's a big part of the job description. And for someone who has PTSD, there was a video here where someone was giving a talk about Iran, and she was in the background giggling and talking to other people. And at a few points, she was very clearly looking like she was trying not to laugh. And it's Trump's fault that she has PTSD. And yeah, there was a talk of a amendment. Oh, here we go. Representative Sheila Jackson Lee was discussing U.S. casualties from the Iraq War, and Ilhan Omar was in the background talking to other people, and she was the only one that was like turning around and chatting and giggling and laughing. I mean, that's not really the way someone with PTSD behaves if they're being triggered into flashbacks, which is what she claims. So, I mean, it's not anything huge, but I just thought it was kind of funny that she's claiming that Trump has given her PTSD, and that talk of the Middle East and his policies and the war in the Middle East is triggering her PTSD. So, let's see. Let me go in here and grab some more of these super chats, because I see a few more in here. Farmin420 says hashtag Dem Free America 2020. Don't get me in trouble. Let's see. There was a few more. Robert Alexander says politicians are mentally ill or a truly special kind of stupid. So, fun fact, there is research that is, or at least was being done in Chicago about personality disorders and antisocial personality specifically. Now, everyone says, oh, I don't talk to people, I'm antisocial. This is talking about clinical antisocial, which is the name now given to psychopaths and sociopaths, and they are most often attracted to careers in politics and law enforcement. So, yes, a lot of politicians probably are mentally ill. Sergeant Rock 52 says, nice one, Pumbaa. LOL. All right. I don't know if that's about. Uncle Mike says to expose the death and rape threats. I do sometimes report them if they are graphic enough, because you have to do that to get them off your channel, honestly. Jason D says, I saw comments deleted on another chat that said deleted by Secret Service. That's interesting. RLB says deleted comments show up as deleted, retracted comments shown up as retracted. All right. I mean, I wish that I had time to sit here and monitor the chat, but at one point there was like 950 of you in here and talking, and I can't do all of that. Ladybug, she says she looked to the man on her left to get approval, if you noticed. Why, yes, frankly. This is the man on my left, right here. This monitor. So that's what you're seeing me looking off to the left about. And that is because my setup has to be movable and transportable and temporary because this is my professional office. You know, I could have just picked up the camera. Here we go. Empty office. Look at that. And there's the monitor. Oh, there we go. So yeah, that's the person giving me permission. It's quite rude, actually, to think that just because I'm a woman, I need permission from a man. And I mean, I'm not even saying that as like a sexist thing, but that is a claim that I get a lot from people who claim to be feminists, that I only have these ideas because I'm getting permission from a man. And you know what? That is not very social justice-y of you. Let's see. All right, we got about 5 minutes before I got to pack up and get to D&D on time. So let's grab this. Jesse Meek says, gonna go, spending more time watching a spinning circle on your face than the running stream. Oh, that's really disappointing. Just a poor connection. I'll watch with the rest tomorrow. Good night, LD and company. I mean, I do have the faster internet and I have my little Ethernet cable here, so hopefully it is not me. And Dragon Stalin 1001 says, Ilhan Omar triggers my PTSD, LOL. I mean, I could see how she could do that, actually, with some of the things that she says. In this article specifically, it talked a lot about veterans and their PTSD. Andy says, money's because I'm earning overtime right now. That is pretty sweet if you're earning overtime watching my stream. Ladybug says, you, me, Doll, and Doll, the only ladies. We need more women interested in this. The left are using women and students to take the firearms. Sad. That is true. So I do get excited when I have ladies that pop up. And I was surprised. I actually had quite a few orders from women on my merch. That's right. Merch. Check out the merch. Merch. And Multi-Rider says, I plan to vote for Biden in primary because he is most electable candidate. He has right touch with women and he is very pro-gun. I don't know if I would say he's very pro-gun. He has been pretty anti-gun recently. He's actually starting to make some of the same mistakes that Biden did and talking about coming for our guns. Trashman4444 says, have you ever heard the D&D song by S. Lynch? Oh, do you mean Stephen Lynch? Oh, I haven't heard that name in a long time. I did not know that he did a D&D song. And I just saw someone, RL says lady here. Well, hello, fellow lady. And John Harlock says, my wife watches the channel and is here with me right now. Well, then hello, Mrs. Harlock. Oh, Ladybug, I'm sorry that I called you an FJW. Janelle Leary is here. Look at all these ladies. Very cool. And people say that ladies aren't interested in the Second Amendment. And Calm Guy 1 says Sic Semper Tyrannis. I'm pretty sure that's not how you say that, but that's the way I just said it. Okay. And Kilo 1111. It just flew up, but said that they're a lady too. All right, guys, so it is about time to wrap up. Yes, it is about time to wrap up. For anyone watching who sent me some applications for the editor position last week, so it's not officially a position yet. As I mentioned, if anyone helps edit your videos, then they then own the copyright, so that requires a contract that has to be written by a lawyer. And so I'm waiting on that and all of that before I officially open the position. So it's not open yet. But when it is, I will actually write up a little job posting thing and post it in all of the public places. And because someone asked, my new D&D character, we're playing 7th Seas. So it is basically Richard Harlow from Boardwalk Empire because he was the best part of the show, including the half a face and a mask, but he is Russian and can shapeshift into animals. So I'm pretty excited about that. So nerdy. I know. All right, guys. So I gotta run so I can get all of this taken down and get there on time. So everyone, thanks for these super chats. Thanks for tuning in and liking the video, the comments, all of that. It does help. It helps tremendously because without your interaction, none of this stuff gets recommended or put into suggested videos. And I suspect it doesn't always even go into notifications. So thank you for all that. Remember to check out any of the partners in the description if you need anything from Cabela's, Palmetto State, USCCA, or even Amazon. There are links that you can click in the description. You just click the link and do your regular shopping, and it gives a kickback to the channel. So again, guys, drum roll. I don't know why I do that. That's so nerdy and stupid. But thanks for watching. Bob Blithrock just says, I've dreamed of LD on many nights. That is a great way to end the chat. So everyone, thanks for tuning in. Stay safe and happy shooting. Well, that was kind of the wrong outro. Whatever. You know what I mean. Bye, guys.